Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ron Bergeron to the stage.
Mosquitoes buzzing round his head, Spanish moss for his bed. Very seldom sees dry land. He's an alligator man.
Thank you for coming today. Your family, and you and I talked about this when we met several years ago. You're like an 8th generation Floridian, which is kind of hard to find in today's environment. Tell us a little bit about your family's history in the community, because I think it's really important to show that you all came up and grew through this, and that's why you're here today doing what you're doing.
Yeah, I'm very proud of our family that entered Florida back in the 1800s. They stopped in Plant City, where my great-great-grandparents were, and grandparents, and then they continued south through Florida to Lake Okeechobee. They lived on the northern rim of Lake Okeechobee by Taylor Creek, which was the last battle, one of the last battles of the Seminole War, where Zachary Taylor come in and tried to take out all our Seminoles. Fortunately, they got into the Big Cypress in the Everglades. A lot of people don't realize the longest war in the history of America was the Seminole War. They survived it, and they've been a very, very big part of our community, our economy, and the culture, the heritage, the roots, and the identity of Florida. So let's give the Seminoles a very big... Shortly in the 1930s, a lot of our family left Lake Okeechobee. It had a lot to do with the hurricane that come across Florida in 1928. You may have read about up to 3,000 people drowned. Part of that was my family that fished on the lake for a living. You know, back in those days, it wasn't a world economy. You know. So my family fished on the lake. The fish were brought up Taylor Creek to the railroad and shipped all over America. I had an aunt that was on the lake that ended up being tied to a door at Canal Point and ended up in Moorhaven when the hurricane come across Lake Okeechobee. Very devastating to our family. We ended up in West Palm Beach in about 1930. My mother graduated from Palm Beach High in 1939. I had a great uncle that had Marshall Bait and Tackle. I don't know whether anybody here remembers that, but it was a bait and tackle on blue heron and US 1 back before World War II and before the boom of Florida. We migrated down to Davie, Florida, cowboy town where I was raised, and I was very blessed to have a grandfather that was a game warden. And I remember I'm 3 years old, he puts me in an airboat, and we enter the River of Grass. I'll never forget it. It was the environment, God's landscaping, the wildlife, the sunsets, and I as a businessman, I've been very successful, but I never forgot that. And I'm very blessed to have the resources and to be committed to the people of Florida, being appointed by multiple governors to make sure that Florida has a quality of life into the future and jobs and economical growth. It's a balance. Florida's a peninsula, and all of us have to realize that living on this peninsula, without the Everglades, that watershed, we would have saltwater intrusion. The Everglades replenishes the aquifer. It's our drinking water, which is the most valuable resource on the planet. So for all of our families and our businesses and our quality of life for future generations, all of us need to learn more and more and be involved with our legislators. I'm very proud to be appointed by Governor DeSantis that has really done a fantastic job in regards to moving Everglades restoration forward, which is the largest environmental restoration ever attempted in the history of the world. And working with the governor, he asked me a question, can we do this? And my answer was that if we can send someone to the moon in a rocket ship, we should be able to save our planet. So, but it's all about we. There's no me's and I's as we all learn the importance of Everglades restoration and how our future generations can have jobs and economical growth and a quality of life. And I am so honored and so blessed. I love the state of Florida, and we're going to make a difference. And if they don't agree with me, we'll feed them to an alligator and just move on.
And he will, and he will. You know, Ron, you and I have talked about preservation and conservation, and on many occasions, sitting in your office one day, and I came out there, and which is a great office, a lot of great mementos in it with you and all the different governors. Charlie Crist, all of them. You got all of them. Lawton Childs, they're all been there with you. I told you I saw people when I was on your way to your office tossing cigarette butts out of their car, the lit cigarettes. And I'm like, this is not the 1960s, people. What do you think you're doing? I mean, you just said we all have to work together to do this. You mentioned that when you first were taken into the Everglades, was that the moment you knew in your life at that young age that you had to do something to hang on to the nature that we have here and improve it and make it better?
That was the starting point. And as I got older, I started to realize certain things that were going on. The importance of the Big Cypress Preserve, the first national preserve in America, just a little bit under 1 million acres. And because of the pioneer families of Florida and the Seminole tribe and the Miccosukis and the old families of this great state, and I'm very proud that our family is one of them, that was the greatest preservation in modern time. And if you read about it, they were going to build a jet airport into Big Cypress. So there's a lot of great people like Marjorie Stoneman Douglas and Governor Graham and Governor Childs and Governor Rubin. I was only 30 years old when that took place. And that was the start of me realizing that we have to make sure we are the fishing capital of the world, the boating capital of the world. And for future generations, we all together have to learn. Because if you know right from wrong, then you have a voice. So if you follow the Bergeron Everglades Foundation, we post every week. We advocate. My daughter, Diamond, the vice president of our Everglades Foundation, is in Tallahassee, in Washington, constantly with all the conservation groups, the hikers, the bikers, the wildlife photographers, the hunters, the fishermen, the conservationists, and the environmentalists. Over 4.8 million people are tied to conservation in this state. That's important. So we're honored. We're going to continue that mission, and we're going to educate. We have education going with Guy Harvey. It's called The Journey of Water is the Life of Florida, from Sawgrass to Seagrass. The quantity, quality, timing, and distribution of water. And as you've all seen, quantity greater than natural going out our rivers, the Caloosahatchee, the St. Lucie, the Indian River Lagoon, destroys the seagrass. Lack of water in Florida Bay kills seagrass. So it's important as we continue to go forward with Everglades restoration that we replumb the Everglades Because back in 1948, when they drew the lines in the Everglades, the half we live on today, that water's being pumped on the half that we chose to save, with the same amount of rain as we had 100 years ago. So we didn't drain the half we're trying to save. That's why we're building all these reservoirs to store water for water supply, agriculture, and compatible water from Boggy Creek, just below Orlando, for 200 miles all the way to Florida Bay. So important.
Ron, don't you, and you and I were talking about this, I don't know if it was Lawton Childs or who it was at the time, there's a lot of things that when they made those lines and started doing massive development in Florida, that started blocking the flow of the water. And I think you're spending a lot of time right now unblocking that flow to get it back to its natural state, is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, the Everglades was compartmentalized. And Everglades restoration is not only to clean up the quality of water, but the quantity and the timing and distribution of a wetland. You know, a lot of people think more water is a better wetland. Well, that's really not true. It's a very sensitive balance. You know, I always use an example, a wading bird ain't got a 3-foot leg to be able to land in the Everglades, one of the natural wonders of the world. So it's a very sensitive balance, and we're going to make it happen. We, all of us. And as we continue on this path, future generations will have a quality of life, and business will prosper. You know, the American dream, having a home here in Florida. You know, the state of Florida to me is the most beautiful state in the United States of America, and we're going to keep it that way.
Yep. You know, you mentioned your daughter Diamond, who has a lot of education programs, and I know that you and Guy are putting together getting to the schools with the young people down here to make sure they understand. What message are you giving to these young people that they can actually understand, that they'll pay attention to? And you and I were kind of talking about this before, prior to breakfast. What message are you giving the young people in the schools, and you're getting to all the schools now, to really have them understand what you're doing and why they have to, if they want to have a business here or get a job here, or if they just want to live here, what kind of a message are you giving them, and how are you doing it with the school groups?
Well, first I want to say I'm a very proud alligator daddy with my daughter, baby Alligator. Her love, her spirit, she is a superstar in my eyes, and how proud am I to have the next generation that can carry the torch. Diamond is working with the Guy Harvey Foundation. We are about ready to have our education in all the schools. And it's interesting because, you know, how do you keep children, how do you keep their attention? Fortunately, our education is not handing someone 500 pages to read. You know, it's hard to keep young people's attention. Guy Harvey has been a superstar in the ocean, and I have been in the Everglades all my life, and that connection. And so we have, in our library, we can go back 40 years. So you can see what we're talking about. If I'm talking about something that happened in 1948, these young people can see it. And what happened from 48 to 2000 for 52 years? And what are we correcting today based upon what happened over that 52-year period? So we're able to let children see what we're talking about. And that's the future. They are the future. And to have a voice, you have to learn right from wrong, and we're so excited to be working with the Guy Harvey Foundation and the Bergeron Foundation together. Sawgrass to seagrass.
You talk about family and your daughter, but also, Ron, when you and I were talking at one point in time, your wife has an incredible family history, including a connection to Cuban Cuban leadership. What's her background? How has her background influenced you as far as your perspective on history and preservation? Because I know that when we chatted about this, it was an interesting story to me that she brought to you a new perspective on how you should look at these things from Cuba.
Oh, she's a very interesting woman.
I have to say that because she's sitting right here, okay? And she won the $250 gift card, I'm just saying, right?
She's the one that taught me how to wrestle alligators. No, not really, but you know, I'm very blessed to have my beautiful wife. You know, raised in Cuba, and when Castro come in, they had to leave immediately because my wife's great-grandfather was the president of Cuba. Alfredo Zayas is her great-grandfather, and her aunt, her great-aunt, was the first woman senator ever elected. So being in that political environment, they had to leave immediately. But the good thing is, the greatest thing that ever happened to her, she found me. Now, she thinks it's the other way around, but I think it's both ways. We're very blessed to have each other. We met in 1988, a young attorney, and of course, my businesses and our real estate portfolio. Being an attorney, she ended up coming into my office and doing some real estate deals, and it's been a wonderful journey. We fell in love, and the interesting thing, she loves the Everglades. She loves the culture of the cowboy and the history of Florida. So we live that life together, and I'm just, let's put it this way, I think I'm blessed to have her.
That's great. That's amazing.
I mean, I gotta say, she talks a lot. And I remember at the beginning of our relationship, I even asked her, I said, why do you talk so much? She says, I'm an attorney, I get paid to talk. I said, well, I hope you're not charging me while we're sleeping. But we are so blessed to have each other and our family and Diamond and my beautiful wife, Alligator Alley. We're going to continue to fight for all of you, and we're going to continue to make sure Florida is an example to the world that we can have jobs and economical growth and a quality of life.
Ron, is that the biggest misconception about Everglades restoration, that they have about the Everglades and the restoration? That because you're restoring the Everglades, it means we've got to back off all the development, we've got to back off all the people moving here, we've got to back off what is incredible economic growth in Palm Beach County? Is that the biggest misconception?
Yes,
They go hand in hand, right?
It really is, because economical growth and jobs are important. You have to look at Florida, and you have obviously the Everglades and other natural resources north of the Everglades. You have the wildlife corridor, the connectivity through Florida for the Florida panther and for our environment and for our wildlife. But outside of that, we need jobs and economical growth. There's just certain areas that we need to protect, and then it's not against growth. We need growth, as long as we have the infrastructure. Without the Everglades, we won't have the infrastructure to have the growth. So it's not anything against growth. I think growth is important as long as it's well planned and it's in the right geographical areas. And then I believe that the Everglades and Florida Bay and Biscayne Bay and the 10,000 islands, all of our rivers, Lake Okeechobee, the heart of the Everglades, those are things that we have to protect. And I think it's important that we do have growth and we do have jobs. It's important.
A couple more things, Ron, before we wrap up here. I think you're planning on building a destination museum, as I hear, you told me.
Yes.
Going to break ground on it. What's that look like so that people, they see the thought of you and Everglades restoration, and it's a concept. Until they drive through Alligator Alley and watch the alligators sunning themselves, and then you kind of see it. If they've never taken an airboat ride, those kinds of things. But this museum you're building will be a destination for folks, a learning center. Tell us a little bit about that and when you hope to break ground and get that going.
Yeah, we've been working on that for several years. There's an awful lot to accomplish such a task. But I believe that a museum of the Everglades that will house 15,000 years of history of Florida, all the way back to the Glades One Indians that lived here, and then the Seminoles and the Miccosukes and the old Florida pioneer families that moved into Florida back in the 1800s. It's important because our history is so beautiful, number one, and the more we educate young people to see that connection. And and it's important that people, all of us, go out and enjoy these natural resources. That's how you fall in love with it. You realize we live in the environment. We have bears on our porch and panthers walking through our yard. Pretty cool, to be honest with you.
Especially when you wrestle them, right?
Well, that's even cooler, okay? But I think that we all need to enjoy these natural resources, and that's another thing that we're working on in the state of Florida, is to make sure that all of our natural resources, you got Everglades National Park, you have the Big Cypress Preserve, you have all of these natural resources, the Central Everglades, which is Florida. And we need to make sure that we have sustainable access and enjoyment to the public. Sustainable is the key. Not nobody can enter, because that's how you fall in love with it. That's how you want to protect it. And so there is a lot of things going on with that that our foundation is working on relating to the Big Cypress Preserve, that there will always be sustainable access and enjoyment, as per the Congressional Act of 1974 that established the first preserve in America. Important. And once you go into the environment, you will fall in love with it, and you will want to save it, and we're really saving ourselves. I keep saying that, but it's a win-win.
So, Ron, beyond donations, what can businesses and individuals do to support this? I think one of them is when you see a piece of legislation coming up that supports your efforts, get on the phone, get on the email, and let your legislator know, your elected official, to vote for this and it passes. That's one way to do this, correct? I mean, they need more people than just you standing out there and your daughter and your wife. Push this. Is that one way they can get involved when they see there's more of these issues coming up, or opportunities, should I say, for Everglades restoration?
Yeah, follow our foundation. We post what's going on in the environment, what's going on in Tallahassee and Washington that could affect all of us, that could affect sustainable access and enjoyment, could affect the future of Florida. I'm a believer that education is so important, so you really know what the issues are and how they will affect all of us. And I believe that we can work together, it's all about we, to make sure that Florida is the best state in the United States of America, and we can enjoy these natural resources with sustainable access and enjoyment, and follow Everglades restoration. Let your legislators know the importance for jobs and economical growth and a quality of life. We can have both. And I can't tell you how honored we are to be a part of that. We love this state, and we're going to continue to fight for 22 million people that live in this state So we do have a quality of life. And when you look at some of the things that's going on across America, for instance, all the fires in California, you know, these are wilderness areas. Wilderness is shown to interfere in being able to protect the environment. And those are things we're fighting on in Florida to make sure that the Big Cypress Preserve is not designated as a wilderness area, because then we can't control fires. We can't go in and take out the pythons that are destroying the natural food chain. We can't protect the environment. And it takes away sustainable access and enjoyment for young people to fall in love with it. So those are things that are going on that all of you need to follow. We need to enjoy these natural resources, sustainable access, to be able to protect them. We can't track the panther, one of the most endangered species on the planet, if you have no access. And that's a true success story with the panther. When you go back to the 1970s, I remember bringing in the best cat tracker in the world. We thought we had no panthers left. 6 months we looked, and we found a very small population. So we started the panther study in 1981. And we set it up, and we brought in 7 females from the Louisiana-Texas line with the same genetics. The farther west you go, you get into the mountain lion, which is the same family, but a little different genetics. Rejuvenated the gene pool and went from 20 to 30 to 230, a sustainable population, or we would have lost the panther in Florida. So, you know, there's a lot of things going on, and I've been very blessed to be appointed by many, many governors through my whole life, and be a part of solutions to make sure we have success like the panther. And the panther roamed across 9 states before the turn of the century. Today, Florida has the only sustainable population, and is surrounded by 10 million people.
Interesting.
You know, and interesting enough, because we live with the wildlife. And it's funny how people, when they come out into the Everglades, and they think everything's coming out of the bushes to get them. It's really not that way. They're really trying to avoid you, and I've had many times that you know, I turkey hunt some, and they eat turkeys. So when you're yelping and purring and clucking, and all of a sudden you see movement, turkeys are gobbling, and you turn, and there's a panther looking at you. 3 yards away. You could see the pupils in his eyeballs. So what does Alligator Ron say then?
Run.
Yeah. No, not really. You unzip your jacket, look bigger to them, and you don't run, because they chase things that run.
I'd be down then, that'd be it. So listen, on your now they'd catch me just like that, I'd be just dead and gone. On your tables, look for cards, please, about the Bergeron Foundation. Please do take it with you. Take a moment to read it. I have learned, I've known Ron for a long time, I've learned a lot today. I had no idea about the panther story, what you did to bring them, a cat tracker, I've never heard of that term before. To me, that's really important. You and your wife and your family have had such an impact on the future of all of us in the room, our children, our grandchildren, and these businesses that will just continue to prosper and grow here in our pro-business environment. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a round of applause for Ron Bergeron.
And let me say one other thing. God bless all of you. God bless America. And long live the Everglades, and the American dream is still alive.
So, on that upbeat note, Thanks to our friends at Seminole Coconut Creek Casino for sponsoring this today. For all of you, go out to News and Gourmet, get a coffee cake muffin, and enjoy your day. Thank you so much.